Hello, Archery family. I'm Manisha, and welcome to the Archery Parent Podcast, what you need to know to best support your archer. Archery life can come at you quickly, and there are often a lot of questions, but not a lot of answers. We are here to change that. We will share tips, how-tos, and what to expect to help you navigate your new archery lifestyle. You'll hear from other archery parents, coaches, and archers themselves. We are going to do this one arrow at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Archery Parent Podcast. I'm Manisha. This is what you need to know to support your archer and their passion. Today, our guest is Vanessa Lee. Now, you may not know her from around the range. However, if you've watched World Archery events, you have probably seen or heard her. Vanessa, welcome. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Vanessa, I just wanted to share with everyone who's watching a little bit about you and where you started. You are a former Canadian national team member, and you did compete on the world stage. You were at the Pan Am Games. What year was that?
That was in 2017 in Guadalajara.
And you have done various World Archery World Cup events, correct?
Yes. Actually, just correction. It wasn't 2017. It was before that, I think maybe 2011. But I have been to many World Cup events, both as an athlete and in different roles now.
You were also representing Canada at the World Archery Championships.
Yes, I've been to a few as an archer.
Where people might actually know you is as a team member of the World Archery Communications Team. And most notably, we saw you in Berlin, correct?
Berlin, that was just earlier this year for the World Archery Championships. And it was probably one of my favorite events I've ever been to.
That's amazing. So we're going to actually get to that. What was it like at the beginning? How old were you? And what was the community like back then?
So I started archery in 2004. I just happened to be visiting family and friends in Korea at the time. And 2004 was when the Athens Olympics were on. I was actually stuck inside watching TV because there was a typhoon outside. I decided, I wanted to start archery because it was on TV, and I never looked back since. Back then, archery was not as much in the media or movies. You know, we probably saw Legolas. That was what we were most familiar with for archery. These days, we have Katniss, we have Hawkeye, all these different characters who are archers. But back then, it was a little bit more niche. That's when I got started. I was 15 years old at the time.
How did you go about finding a place to shoot, a coach? How did you move forward on that?
It's kind of a funny story because, like I said, I was in Korea. And so they have these little internet cafes. And I went there one evening and I came up with a business plan for myself because I was traveling, first time away from home. And I decided to stop spending all the money my parents gave me. And I said, okay, I'm going to save all the rest of this money to buy a bow. I had figured out how much it costs online. And then as soon as I came home, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so my parents were completely supportive. They took me to an archery shop. There happened to be a flyer on the wall for an archery coach. And that's how I got started. It was very grassroots at the time, but I started to progress from there.
When you were in Canada, who was your coach?
Yeah, I had a few coaches. Like I said, very grassroots when I started. My first coach, his name was Maciej Karlowski. And then I met the one and only Joan McDonald. Has been such a huge, huge part of my life in and outside of archery. She was my primary coach for most of my archery career. And then I had one more coach when I went to Korea and I trained overseas.
And how long did you spend in Korea?
I went there 3 separate times. The first was 2 weeks. The second time and third time were both 6 months.
I have heard of archers who take time out from competing. They go abroad and they just immerse themselves in that, not only the culture, but in the sport. And then they come back and they kick butt. Is that something that you found with you too?
You know what? I liken archery to almost like learning a language. You can learn it wherever, but if you're really immersed in it, you're eating, breathing, just like thinking about archery all the time, that's when it really sticks to you. And it's interesting because the second and third time that I went to Korea, I took very different approaches. The first time I went, I learned technique and worked really hard, but I came back and it was almost like the longer I spent in Canada, the more I forgot. The second time I went, I really just started from scratch. And when I came back, it was almost like it was more in my bones, the things that I had learned. So I've experienced two very, very different experiences going to Korea abroad and learning archery. And I would highly recommend the second. I had a lot more longevity, I think, with what I had learned.
I've got two questions to follow up here. How did you even find somebody in Korea that was willing to coach you? And then the second, as you said, coming back, it was in your bones. However, if there was an issue, how did the Canadian coaches help you with that form?
Yeah, I'll answer your second question first, just because it's at the forefront of my mind. But that was really a challenge because, again, like learning a foreign language, you can learn it somewhere and then come back, but who's going to really help you with that unless they speak that same language? And so I learned archery from Koreans, and the way they taught it to me was quite different from what I had learned here. So then that was really a struggle with my coach Joan, who was amazing, but I learned differently from what she was used to. So then all I could really go off of was what I learned, what I remembered. And so as much as I learned when I was in Korea, it was really hard to maintain that because I didn't have that same pair of eyes that could notice the changes or could understand what my form was about. To answer your first question, this was kind of a funny story too. I was at my first ever international event in 2008. It was the University World Championships in Taiwan. And I had shot so poorly in the ranking round that I ended up shooting against the first place archer in the second round. And at the time, she wasn't really anybody whose name would, strike fear in anyone's eyes, but she ended up becoming Chang Hye-jin. So 2016 Rio, two-time gold medalist, and, she's done really, really well for herself.
Yes.
We shot against each other. We really hit it off, and her coach saw something in me, or I don't know, she liked my personality, or maybe she just felt really bad that I shot so poorly. But she invited me to come to Korea, and she is also a very, very important person to me to this day.
That is an amazing story. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Chang Hye-jin and I ended up becoming roommates, and so I know like a lot of stories about her. She's an incredible person on and off the archery range.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Let's talk a little bit about the archery community, you as an archer, but support. So you mentioned your archery coaches, but can we talk support outside of that? So parents, friends, what did you need as an archer outside of just training?
That's a great question. And I recognize that this is the Archery Parent Podcast. So of course,
Yes.
we should talk about this. I'll start with my friends. And friends are awesome. They might not understand it, but they'll think it's cool. Like whatever you're doing. And that's a really good friend if they can kind of cheer for you. So my friends didn't really understand archery, but they thought that me traveling or working towards something was really awesome. And so they kind of just supported me in whatever way just by showing interest. My parents, I was really, really fortunate. And I recognize a lot of my teammates or people I competed against may have not been as fortunate. But my parents, ever since I was young, if I was interested in something, they would support me in whatever ways they could. And when it came to archery, I think they recognized that this was different. I've had a lot of interest growing up, but I was really dedicated to archery. So they said, okay, let's go. As long as you are having fun and you want to do this, then we'll support you. And so the ways that they supported me was financially, emotionally, and, by just kind of being there. And maybe there's more subtle ways that we can get into, but they were there for me in many ways. I would say that when I started archery, I always wanted to compete at the highest level, and that was my dream. I saw archery on the Olympics, and so that was my goal starting. When it changed was when I realized maybe like I actually could do this. And I think from my parents' perspective, when I think about it, I don't know if a lot changed about their support. It was always about whether I was having fun and wanted to do it. And so my goals in the end were up to me, and it didn't dictate how they were going to support me. They were supporting me fully, whether my dream was to, shoot for fun in the backyard or to one day shoot at the Olympics. Because I think they realized that was my dream and they could support me in whatever. That wasn't going to dictate what they had to and like shouldn't do. They just want to support me.
Can you look back and does anything come to mind where you heard parents, friends, or family members say something, not necessarily to you, but did you ever overhear anything that you were like, why would they say that? Or how could they say that to their archer? Did anything sort of come to mind that you think, okay, if my parents said that, that would not be cool?
Mm-hmm. Having gone to international tournaments and being Korean, it allowed other Korean coaches to feel some sort of like parental bond with me. Right? I think they saw their children in me in some strange way. And there's a coach who is still like a very, very prominent coach internationally. And I remember he said to me one day on the field, I think it was at a World Cup, he's like, why are you doing this? Because honestly, I won't hide it. I was not going to win medals. I wasn't at that caliber. I wasn't really there to compete. I was almost just like a participant. So he's like, why are you doing this? You could be better at like other things. And he saw that I had other passions too. And it really hurt because I didn't care about other things. This is what I wanted to do, even though I wasn't the best at it. So that was really hard. But in retrospect, I can see maybe it came from a good place. But at the time, maybe the delivery wasn't the greatest.
And how did you move forward from that?
At the time, I really turned it into some fuel for the fire. I was thinking, I'm going to show you next time. And maybe it helped a little bit. Maybe it helped me do, the extra sets or reps at the gym. It kind of pushed me a little bit harder. It did hit really deep where I'm like, does he see something that I don't see? Am I, a little bit over my head with all of this? So I can't tell you exactly how it affected me. At the time, maybe it helped a little bit, but it did maybe cast some doubt into what I was doing. Yeah, it wasn't easy to deal with.
Did you tell anyone? Did you talk about it with anyone and move forward that way? Or did you just sort of keep it in and, as you said, use it as fuel? But did you get over it quickly? Or what did you do with that in addition to what you said?
I have talked about it with my coach who's in Korea. And she kind of just gave me some context. She's like, you know what? He's gonna say things like that, and you can't really let it weigh you down. Your journey is your journey, and it's not going to change based off of what someone tells you should do. And so that was really helpful. But over the years, I've come to realize that not everybody is going to say exactly what you need to hear. And so you can't control that. You can't control what someone else says to you. You can only control your own reactions to it. And so, I think I've taken that experience, learned from it, and it can apply to so much more outside of archery.
Eventually, you decided to step back away from being an archer. However, you did not shy away from the community, the archery community at large. Tell us the next stage of your archery career.
Yeah. So I decided to stop shooting competitively around 2015, 2016. It's a fuzzy line because, archery pulls you back in weird ways. It was 2017 when I was really missing my archery friends internationally. And up until then, I had been doing some work just behind the scenes for World Archery. So some videos that you might see that had a Korean interview, I was translating that from home or doing things like that. And so I was really missing my friends. The 2017 World Championships were coming up in Mexico, And I messaged my contact from World Archery and I said, hey, I have a deal for you that you don't want to miss up on. And I said, pay for me to come and work for you. Just pay for my flight, pay for my accommodations. I will work for you for free. And give me whatever jobs. I just want to see my friends. And they said, okay. So I went to the World Championships in 2017 and they had me doing all sorts of jobs, creating content. They had me doing the live commentary. I didn't ever expect to do that. It was incredible. And actually, Chang Yejin that I mentioned, she was at that World Championships. I think it was maybe one of the last ones that I saw her at. And that's how it got started. Since then, I've been to, I think, 3 World Championships for communications team, several World Cups, and a few World Cup finals.
One of the first times I remember hearing you as a live commentator, you were getting so excited. You brought an energy and a reality, and you were saying what the people at home were saying out loud, but no one else could hear. But you were saying what they were all thinking. Let's talk a little bit about behind the scenes of a World Archery event. Can you talk about the spectacle versus the reality? What are the things that you see behind the scenes?
Yeah, spectacle versus reality is kind of a funny thing because we're putting on a show here, and we're trying to tell a story. Everything that we do in communications is telling stories. So the reality is that it's not always glamorous. You get the people who are at the top of the podium who have these incredible journeys to get there. But the reality is that you also have hundreds of archers who also have incredible stories, but will never get there. So that's the reality of it. But the spectacle is great too. And that's not to take away from the stories and the people's journeys, but there's really different sides when you go internationally, I think.
We're going to mention the Berlin World Championships, which you were doing behind the scenes. You were there with, I don't know if it was a selfie stick or something, but you were right up close and personal.
Yeah, my goodness. The Berlin World Championships was memorable for so many reasons. And I think there were some main characters, Mete, of course. And I think the other main character was the weather.
Yes.
It was like a movie. It reminded me of the Truman Show, when like Jim Carrey's trying to get away and then like the producer, he just like turns on the it was like that. It was just incredible. So it was unpredictable. It was hot, then it was cold, then it was raining, then it was windy. It was everything. And it really created some great stories.
How do archers deal with weather like that? It's almost like, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes because it'll change.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. You have, 20 seconds to shoot, right? And all you can think is that your opponent's shooting in the same weather. Everyone's on an equal playing field, unless, it's starting and stopping only when you're shooting, which doesn't happen. But you're all shooting on the same line, in the same weather. So then it really becomes like a mental game. How well are you able to execute your shot, stay focused, stay calm and collected in the same circumstances that your opponent is in as well?
We'll talk about Eric Peters, Canadian Eric Peters, who went on to win the silver medal. And the match against Mete was incredible.
Yeah.
That was leading up your commentary. You were showing the weather. You were showing what they were dealing with. And I did message you after or during while you were there, just saying like you were doing such an amazing job. And you were bringing it to us in a very different way that allowed us to really get invested with everything. So I guess on behalf of a bunch of people, thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us about that match between Mete and Eric.
I always think the final match of a competition is really interesting, the gold medal match, because you're there. You've done all the work, and I don't know if at that point, if there's really anything to lose, or if there's everything to lose, if you know what I mean. Because at that point, you're at the World Championships in the finals. You're either world champion or you're not. But on the other side, on the flip side, you are in the finals of the World Champion. What do you have to lose? Right? So there's two ways to see it. And I think both archers shot like they had nothing to lose. And I think that's what made it such a great match. And thank you for saying that I brought content or perspective that you hadn't seen before. I felt really great at that competition because I felt so free and able to, tell stories in the way that felt really authentic to me. And when I did commentary and you felt like that was exciting, I really appreciate that too, because that was authentically me. So that was completely archery through my eyes and how I like to see it. And what can I say? Like, if they put on a great match like that, there's no work that needs to be done. You just kind of need to bring content through the way that I see it. And it was a really, really awesome match. I'll never forget it.
We could feel and hear your excitement, your love, and your passion for the sport. Any favorite moments from the World Archery Championship in Berlin, but also from your World Archery correspondence experience?
There's one moment that I will never forget, and that was the 2019 World Championships in Den Bosch, Netherlands. And Brady Ellison needed a perfect 10. He went into a one-arrow shoot-off to win the World Championship title. He had won pretty much everything before, and that was the last kind of title that he was looking for. Obviously, he's still looking for maybe the Olympic champion, but we're not there yet. And he shot a perfect 10. It was such a show. That's one of my best memories. Another one that I'll never forget is Aditi Swami from India. And she's so young and so calm and collected. She put on an incredible show at the World Championships this year in Berlin. And just her smile after. And it was almost like she had just, won anything else because she was just so modest about it. But I think she was very happy.
It is incredible. And really, India has become such a powerhouse on the compound side. These athletes that are coming out of there are really unbelievable. I might slightly be a little bit biased, but yeah, but it's there for everybody to see for sure.
Yeah, well, Sergio is doing incredible things with the team, and it really shows.
I don't know if you know, but can you talk about why the Indian team decided to make that coaching move?
I don't know Sergio in particular, or I don't know why they would choose Sergio in particular. Actually, you know what? Like, he's Sergio Pani. Like, of course they would choose him. There's no question. I don't know why they outsourced, but I think this is something that we're continuing to see in the world of archery. A lot of countries were hiring Korean coaches because they had done so well in recurve, but hiring compound coaches a little bit newer. And it's really nice to see because there hasn't been a lot of funding internationally for compound because it's not in the Olympics yet. It's really interesting to see that more countries are putting more of a focus on compound, and Korea hiring Real Wild or India hiring Sergio Pani. And it's really good for the sport. I think it's going to push compound even further.
Yes, definitely. And with them being in the Pan Am Games, who knows what will come next for them. Speaking of what's next, do you mind just running through what is next on the World Archery stage? Meaning we're heading into the Olympics for 2024, and just talking about quotas as much as you know and can share. Canada has one quota spot for men on the men's team. We currently do not, and we're recording this before the Pan Am Games, I just wanted to say. So at this point, we have one men's quota spot. We do not have any women, and we do not have a team. So can you just talk about what the Pan Am Games means with regards to quota spots and other opportunities for teams to get spots for the Olympics?
Yeah, the Pan Am Games are really important, and other competitions around the world are going to be important as well. For example, the Asian Games allowed the Korean women to get their first Olympic quota spot, which was a big deal. The same thing's going to be happening for the Pan Am Games. So for Canada, we're going to really, really need a spot there. And then other countries are going to be working just as hard. So leading up to the Olympics, there's going to be a few more competitions where countries around the world can try and get their last kind of quota spots for the Olympics.
And I just wanted to share, so the Pan Am Games are considered a continental games where there are quota spots available. So Asian Games, Pan Am Games, those are examples of where quota spots are available. Now, will there be any quota spots during World Cups as well?
Not that I know of, sorry. I'm not completely familiar with the process going into Paris, but I think there's a final qualifier, if I'm not mistaken, where countries have one last chance to earn quota spots before the Olympics. Is that right?
I believe so, is usually my resource for all of this information too.
Okay, nice.
So I will, talk to him for sure about it. Where will we see you? Are you going to be part of the World Archery Communications Team, bringing us stories of athletes from around the world in 2024?
I certainly hope so. When it comes to World Archery, I always, always, always love working with them. They're trying to optimize their communications team all the time. And so I was supposed to, have a 2-year contract with them and go to every competition. It didn't work out because I have a full-time job. I'm in Canada and I can't do that for 2 years, but we'll see. I think opportunities come, and yeah, I'd love to stay involved.
Well, we love what you have to offer as a journalist and correspondent, and we love what you love, and you do such a great job at it. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like to share for parents? Anything we missed? What would you like to sort of have as a final word?
You know what? I just want to put everything into perspective. I think archery is an incredible sport. I've learned so much, taken a lot from it. But what I've really taken away is not, successes or things like that. And that's just me and my career. I haven't, achieved a whole lot on the range itself. But even speaking to people who have Olympic gold medalists and world champions, they don't define their lives by what they've achieved on the shooting range. I think they define their lives by who they are outside, and they've learned a lot of lessons from archery. So I just want to put everything into perspective. As much as archery is really important to a lot of people, it's just this kind of like silly little thing that we do. I mean, we stand on a line and shoot sharp objects at targets like 70 meters away or 50 meters away. I've had this conversation with my good friend Chef from the Netherlands, who retired recently. We talk about it all the time, like, what is archery, really? What is high performance sport? And it's great. It offers us a lot, and it always sucks us back in. But I think who we are as people and the lessons we learn from archery is more important than anything we'll ever achieve in the sport.
Amazing how it really is. Did you speak with Chef after Joe Lesnar told him on the world stage that he loved him?
Yeah, I did.
What I'm referring to, for those of you who may not have been familiar with it, at the World Archery World Championships in Berlin, Joe Lesnar, who is the mental performance coach for Canada, was in the box for Eric Peters and was sharing thoughts. And one of those thoughts was, "I love you, Chef." And World Archery, when they were doing a follow-up, showed Chef's reaction when he was doing the commentary of, it was almost like, did I really hear that? And then they started laughing a little bit. You don't need to share too much, but what did Chef think about that, aside from the giggle?
Yeah, I spent some time with Chef after Berlin. I went to visit him, and it was really a nice trip to wind down. And his reaction was pretty much exactly what World Archery showed, the parallel video. It was just kind of like, did I hear that? And, he was there to do a job. He was there to be an impartial color commentator. And so that's all he really felt about it.
That's great. Maybe we'll get Chef on the podcast sometime. Who knows?
Yeah. He's a great guy to talk to.
Before we close out, I have a joke for you, and you don't have to laugh, but I was going to ask you, are you into astronomy?
Maybe a little. I know I'm a Sagittarius. Why?
So am I.
No
Oh
way.
my gosh. Yes. What did Orion win when he came in second place?
What did he win?
During a archery competition. Sorry. I am the worst at these jokes. What did Orion win when he came in second during an archery competition?
I do not know. What did Orion win?
He won a constellation prize.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's not bad.
No, you know what? There are dad jokes and then there are Archery Parent Podcast jokes. So, you can decide what you want it to label as. Vanessa Lee, thank you so much for your time today. And to everyone out there, join us, follow us, subscribe. We are so happy that you joined us today. This is the Archery Parent Podcast, where it's what you need to know to support your archer and their passion. Thanks so much, Vanessa. We will see you again.
See ya. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Archery Parent Podcast. This show is for archery parents by an archery parent. You can find more episodes at archeryparentpodcast.ca. While there, sign up for our newsletter and check out our blog. Share this episode with at least one other archery parent. The Archery Parent Podcast is available in both audio and video formats. If you have questions, ideas, or comments, we want to hear them. The Archery Parent Podcast is hosted and produced by me, Manisha. Reese Wilson-Poyton and Alyssa Foley are our resident archery consultants and contributors. Fact-checking by Manisha, Reese, and Alyssa. Our theme music is The Stranger by Wooden Flowers, Michael Minart, and Giant Metal Crickets. Sound production is by armedia.ca. Follow us on social media and YouTube for additional tips, how-tos, and what you need to know to best support your archer. I'm Manisha of the Archery Parent Podcast. We're doing this one arrow at a time.